Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing another One Piece review, specifically the post-war arc. Now if you have been following my channel, you would have noticed that I've gone on a little bit of a time skip myself. Sorry about that, I got pretty sick. It wasn't the Roro, so don't worry about that. I don't know, come down with something and I was out of action for a while. Also, you know, I was dealing with the emotional damage after Ace's death. So I kind of took a little bit of a break there. But we're here, we're back, we're healthy, and we've got a lot to talk about. Now, if you've been following my journey through One Piece, you'll know that I've talked about a couple of things a few times. Specifically, I talk about how the storytelling process is a lot like a roller coaster. You apply pressure, you release pressure, you apply pressure, you release pressure, and that's how you emotionally mess with your audience, which is exactly what you're trying to do. And this arc really fits in well with that, and it fits in well with exactly what it's meant to be doing. It's meant to be tying up all of the loose ends that have come from everywhere and all the arcs before it, because it's the end of the first half of the Grand Line, which I now know is called Paradise. So it's the end of that Paradise section, and this arc really did a great job of what it was meant to do, tie up those loose ends, but also give us, you know, extra threads thrown out, so in the future we'll have more things to pull on and more things to learn about. And I think it did a really great job of doing that. One of the big things that I really wanted to talk about, and I really want to start this video off talking about it, is the time skip itself, right? So I finished at chapter, you know, I think it was like 597 or something. It was like just before 600 when this chapter ends, and you know, it ends with that symbolic gesture of like Luffy putting his hat on the rock or whatever, like the only safe place on the island, so he can go and train and do all these Haki stuff, which I'm really glad about, because I've been saying heaps that I cannot wait to learn more about the Haki. And we got that from Rayleigh. We learned a bit more when he was fighting the elephant. But yeah, one of the big things that I wanted to talk about was the time skip itself. It came about in a way that I did not expect at all. You know, when we do get that reveal about Luffy with the tattoo, or, you know, I doubt it's a real tattoo, probably like a drawing he did on himself or whatever. I really liked that, you know, like when it was in the paper, and it kind of showed all that symbolism with the ox bell, it was called, and how he rings it 16 times. And, you know, when you're first reading that and you're like, okay, wow, I get it, it's very symbolic, you know, because the Marines explain that they ring it 16 times to call an end to the previous year and ring in the new year, like 8 for each side of that. And, you know, we can see the obvious symbolism of, like, you know, it's the end of Whitebeard's kind of that pirate era, and it's the beginning of this new crazy era where, you know, who knows who it's going to be named after, or like what events it might be named after. But it's also the symbolism of, like, it's the end of the first half of Oda's story, right? It's the end of like the Paradise section, and they're about to go into like the New World section. I really enjoyed all of that, especially like just the little like play they did with how everyone got it, but they were like, you know, one of the One Piece crew didn't really understand it at first, and you see Zorro and he's just like, what's going on? There's something here, there's something more here, but I can't figure it out. But everyone else is there and they're like, I immediately get it. I immediately get it. I'm going to make myself stronger. I'm going to make myself better. I just thought that that was a nice little fun play on that ongoing joke with Zorro. But more specifically, the thing that I wanted to talk about with the time skip was that it's 2 years, right? That was so much more than I was expecting. I was expecting, when Luffy was ringing that bell, like the symbolism of it, I was expecting it to be like 6 months, right? I was expecting, you know, the symbolism of Luffy ringing that bell was like, hey, you know, like I'm ringing this 16 times, guys, on New Year's Day, we will meet back at the Sunny and we will go and do the thing. I thought that was what the symbolism was. But then we get the reveal that it's actually in 2 years' time, we will go and we'll meet back at the Sunny. And when I first read that, I was like, wow, that is a long time. Like 2 years is a hell of a lot of a long time. And, you know, I kind of had these thoughts in my head. I was like, you know, as the reader, is it believable to me that Luffy would expect his crew to meet him back there in 2 years' time? And then, like, you know, I kind of was thinking about it and I was like, oh, of course, like this crew is like so tight-knit and it's their family and they're all following their dreams and all their dreams relate to each other. So of course it makes sense that Luffy would be able to rely on his crew, especially because of how much Luffy has helped his crew and how much his crew has relied on him. It's now interesting to be put in that position where can Luffy rely on them to come back to him? Which, I mean, as the reader, I'm like, yes, he can. And yeah, anyway, so the point I was trying to get at was, like, when I first read the 2-year thing, I was like, wow, that is a really long time. And just from like a storytelling standpoint, I was like, what is the symbolism of 2 years, right? Because in the way that this world works, right, Luffy could be trained up by Rayleigh in all the Hakis in 6 months, right? Zorro could be trained by Hawkeye in 6 months. Nami could learn more about the weather in 6 months. Chopper could read all those books in 6 months. Usopp could lose all that weight in 6 months, you know? Sanji could fight off the Okamas and learn the recipes in 6 months, right? Like, it could all happen in 6 months. There's no reason why it needed to take 2 years. But then I realized that the significance of the 2 years is to let all of the things settle in the new world. It's to let this power struggle and this vacuum that was created by Whitebeard's death, it's to let all that settle. It's to allow the new players to get in there and to like set up their, you know, bases, their enemies. It's to allow like a proper power structure, so when they're going into the new world, they can be like, okay, cool, so this is the power structure now. These are the 4 emperors now. These are, you know, the Shiki Baki or whatever that one was called. These are all the new players. These are the people that have fit into the slots that were, you know, it would have been all chaos if they were to go without waiting. They would have just like rocked into all of this chaos with everybody vying to be number 1, whereas now everyone will be in that position and you will see the clear ladder of like, okay, this is who's who in the zoo and this is who we need to beat in order to become what we want to become. But also, more than that, I feel as if it is going to make everything feel so much more earned, right? Because one of the big things that I was really seeing, and I was kind of like, how is this, you know, I'm kind of worried about this, and was Luffy's obviously not strong enough to be the most powerful person in the world, right? Like, he's not even the strongest person in paradise, and, you know, everything is just meant to escalate when they get into the new world. So, like, for me as the reader, I was sitting there and I was like, okay, you know, sure, Luffy's got gear 2 and he's got the ability to, like, balloon himself out, and now he's got this Haki ability coming on. But even with all that, he still doesn't seem strong enough to be able to beat, you know, Aokiji, for example, who, you know, congratulations on the promotion, Aokiji. And so, to me, this, like, 2-year period of him training is going to make it feel a hell of a lot more earned when he comes back much stronger, you know, like I said at the beginning, like, there was no reason why none of this could have just taken 6 months instead of taking 2 years. But for Luffy to be at that power level that he needs to be at to be a contender in the new world, this 2-year time skip will make it feel so much more earned and will make it feel just that much more engaging. So, you know, when I first read the 2 years, I was like, God damn, that is a long time. But now that I've had some time to like meditate and think on it, I'm like, I am actually super on board with the 2 years. I also did want to say, you know, a very special thank you very much, guys. Like, one of the big things that I didn't expect when I joined this One Piece community is just how supportive you've all been, right? Like, you know, I went 2 or 3 weeks there without making a video, without posting anything. Generally, you know, if I don't make a video, I'll make a post like, hey guys, you know, I've got this going on, or I've got this going on. But, you know, after 3 weeks, I put up a post. I was like, guys, you know, I'm sorry, I've been a bit down, I've been a bit sick. And all I've gotten in return has just been just the most positive, awesome, just heartwarming responses of like, you know, just take your time, you've got this, you know, we appreciate you, like, just keep up the good work, just do whatever it is you need to do. And, you know, it's one of the things that has really kept me in the One Piece community and has really just cemented my enjoyment of this story, is just how everyone comes together, right? Everyone is the Nakama coming together, and I just feel so supported and welcomed into the community. And I've said that a couple of times in a couple of my videos, but I just wanted to like really say I really appreciate the support that you guys have given me. It does mean a lot. It does keep me, you know, very fired up to make these videos, to talk to you guys about this. And it's actually one of the reasons why I stopped making Wheel of Time videos. I don't know if you guys, you know, remember, like if you were at the beginning of my One Piece journey, I was doing like a one Piece video, one Wheel of Time video, and then eventually I just stopped doing Wheel of Time and just did One Piece instead. It was because I got so much more out of the One Piece community. You know, the love and the respect and the joy that I got from the One Piece community was so much more than what I got out of the Wheel of Time community. So I just like left them behind and just focused specifically on the One Piece. I will eventually pick the Wheel of Time back up, but I just wanted to say, like, I appreciate you. Before we move on any further and I start throwing up like the panels and I start talking about the panels and, you know, whatever else I want to say about the panels and whatever, I do want to bring up firstly Ace's tattoo, right? You guys are probably sick of me bringing up Ace's tattoo and all of my terrible, incredibly wrong predictions about it, but now I think I finally understand. It was Sabo's pirate symbol, right? It was the S with the bones behind it, and that was his pirate symbol, and Ace got it as a memorial to his friend that died. Right, that has to be it, because it was the same symbol of Sabo's pirate flag, right? So I can't imagine it is not that. Surely it has to be that. Also, I don't believe for a second that he's dead, right? Like, show me this child's body and I will believe he's dead, which sounds incredibly morbid, but I don't know, I just don't feel as if he's dead. And secondly, I wanted to talk about Zorro and his kind of training that he's going to be doing over the next 2 years. And if I've got a panel, I don't think I saved many panels to do with Zorro, but if I've got it, I'll put it up here. I really like Zorro throwing himself on the ground in front of Hawkeye and being like, teach me, teach me. And especially like the conversation they had with like, you know, you are the only person, you are my biggest enemy, you are my biggest threat, like you are the person that I'm trying to take down. And Hawkeye is like, why would I train you so you could specifically come and kill me? Like, why would I do that? But then in the end, he agrees to teach Zorro. And, you know, I say it a lot, honor amongst enemies is one of my favorite tropes. So this was another one of those great moments that I'm really looking forward to finding out more about. And I hope that we at least get some kind of like training montage when we move into like the new world before we see everyone get back together or whatever. I hope that we see some kind of training montage with Zorro and Hawkeye, because I have a feeling that that would be a really interesting thing to see. Also, I hope there's some kind of like implied jokes or something that like Zorro hooked up with the ghost lady, because I mean, like, you know, they're gonna be living together for the next 2 years, so like, come on Zorro, you got this. Alright, so one of the first panels that I wanted to talk about was this one, where Chopper finds out, he gets the newspaper and he sees like, you know, Luffy with the thing, and so he heads back to the medicine island that he's just come from, but on his way back he feels like some kind of shame because he just like left, and he, you know, he's like, oh god, I don't want these people to know it's me. And one of the big things that I've talked about a lot is that firstly, Usopp's character arc, right? If you go back to especially my like earlier videos, once we get Usopp, the first like 10 videos after we get Usopp, I like talked a hell of a lot about him and his character arc and where I think he's going and blah 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 and all that, right up until the point where we got Frankie, which I feel we haven't really had a lot of Usopp moments after we got Frankie, right? But one of the big things after that moment was that I said that Usopp stepped into this position of where he was stepping into that brave warrior position, and then Chopper was stepping into Usopp's old role. And it felt like Chopper was going through an expedited version of Usopp's character arc. And I feel like this is another great representation of that moment, because just as I was talking about with the whole you know, Usopp and the whole Frankie situation, all of that, when Usopp fights Luffy and goes away and there's all that drama, and then he comes back with the mask on, right? That's exactly the same thing that Chopper has done. He's gone away, he's felt shame about returning, and so he's come back with a mask on and pretending he's someone else. And even in what Chopper says, he says, "No, I am not who you think I am. You have the wrong man. I may look like him, but I am actually his friend, Chopper Mask." Right, which is very similar to what Usopp says. Like, I don't remember exactly what Usopp says, but he says something along the lines like, "I am not Usopp, I am Usopp's friend, the Sniper King." The next one I want to point out is this one, right? This is just like one of those pictures at the beginning of the chapter heads. As you can see, it's like Ace, Luffy, and Sabo, and it just makes me wonder how accurate these like pictures are at the beginning of these chapter heads, because like this was just pretty recently after Sabo died, and then we get this where we see him grown up running with Ace and Luffy, and you'll also see that Ace doesn't have the S. So I'm just like, is this meant to be like an alternate reality where Sabo didn't die and then, you know, Ace didn't get the S because he didn't have to do the memoriam for his friend? Or is this like actual proof that he is not dead? Who knows? Just food for thought. I don't know how accurate these like pictures are at the beginning of chapters, but you know, I thought I'd talk this one. This one I thought was another good one, specifically, so this is, you know, right at the beginning of the arc when, you know, the word gets out that Whitebeard's dead and Ace is dead and like all this crazy stuff has happened. And you can see they specifically say, "The Marines have won. The legendary Whitebeard was defeated," right? And I said in my last review, I was like, you know, it wasn't right until the end when the Marines were like, "We've won, you know, I can't believe we've won," or something. That was the moment in my head that it like really clicked, like, oh wow, you know what, these Marines have actually like really won this battle. Like, I can't believe it. I was expecting at least Ace to get away, but they've just like unequivocally won. They killed Whitebeard, they killed Ace, they like did an absolute show of force, they did this, that, and the other. They have like a 100% victory and won. But someone in the comment section actually replied and they said something along the lines of like, but did the Marines really have like a 100% victory? Did they really win? Because like you see in the aftermath of it all, the Marines are like, oh man, they told them that One Piece was still real. And you see, especially in this arc, the like aftermath of everyone finding out that One Piece is real, and it's just like sparked this new age of piracy. So it does beg that question of like, did they actually unequivocally win, or was it kind of like a 50-50 victory? Sure, they killed Whitebeard, but now, you know, before Whitebeard went down, he confirmed the existence of One Piece, and he sparked a new age in piracy. So like, did they really win? Like they won the battle, but now there's a new war going on. This one I thought was kind of weird. We didn't really get a lot of context with this one. I believe, if my memory serves, this was when we were getting flashes of what all of the newbie pirates from Paradise going into the new world, what they were all up to. We were shown like Bonnie and Drake and like all those people. And we see Capone Gang Beggy? However you see that, however you say that guy's name. You see he is being picked up by what looks like, you know, the moon or something, like some kind of meteor has come down and is now abducting them UFO style. And we don't really get a lot of context with this, and we don't really get any more information from it, but it's one of those like threads that they've thrown out that I'm sure we'll find out about later. If I was to hazard a guess, I would presume it's got something to do with Dr. Vegapunk, right? Like that's the only person who I could really imagine would turn a asteroid into a UFO and be abducting pirates. And this is an extension of the panel that I was talking about before, where we see, you know, everybody celebrating. You know, the guy's got his sword in the air and he's like, everyone's celebrating. And he says, "Whitebeard said it. One Piece is real. Let's go find it. The sea still holds unseen dreams." So that, like the point before, reinforces that the Marines' victory wasn't a 100% success. This one I really liked. I've talked about before, you know, kind of my feelings towards Boa and Luffy and the kind of like instant love that Boa felt for it. And generally people hate like insta love and all of that stuff. But I feel as if it was done very well in this particular one with Boa, how like Luffy is unlike any man she's ever met and all that kind of stuff. But one of the big things that I did say is I really hoped that Boa was going to be around during Luffy's recovery phase, like while he was dealing with his emotional trauma, while he was dealing with his physical wounds. One of the things I did say was if Boa is there for him in his like hardest times, then I will heavily ship them. I'll be all over it. I'll be like, yep, Boa, Luffy, go for it. I believe in you guys. And you know, that kind of like dynamic that they have where she's just like madly simping for him and he just doesn't understand it at all. You know, it's funny, it's great, I really enjoy it. And this panel really did do that thing that I wanted. I wanted Boa to be there for Luffy in his hardest times. And you see down the bottom, she says, "How tragic. If I could, I'd suffer in his place. I feel so bad for you, Luffy." And she's just there and you can see how distraught and emotionally upset she is. And she's just like, if I could suffer for you, Luffy, so you wouldn't have to, then I would. And you know, it's that kind of thing that makes me like Boa. It's that kind of thing that makes me ship Luffy and Boa, is that she isn't just there for his good times, she's there for like his bad times too. And I really like that. This one alludes to another one of those plot threads that I was talking about being thrown out, where we see Moria, or Mariah, however you can say that guy's name, we see he is being like taken out by Don Flamingo, and Mariah says something along the lines of, you know, who ordered you to do this? Was it Sengoku? And Don Flamingo says, no, it was someone higher up. So we can see how everything is kind of like imploding for the Marines. You can see how they're kind of like doing their own power struggle while the pirates are doing their own power struggle. And this is another one of those, like, you know, the 2-year time skip. If for some reason all of the Shiki Baki people are all different, or, you know, there's new people there, or there's new people in the government, there's new people in the Marines hierarchy, you know, we will have this kind of setup that there is someone higher up kind of pulling these strings and going, take him out, replace him, do this, do this, do this. And so for me, I really enjoyed this panel because it kind of promises us that there will be some kind of power shift, and going into the future, you know, there are corrupt Marines higher up, you know, we're all getting that information. This one I thought was actually really important and really interesting. So this is, you know, roughly towards the beginning of the story, and it shows that the pirates, like the new pirates that are coming into the world, or maybe these are the old ones, they don't really tell us, but it shows that these pirates are attacking the weakened Marines. And it reads like this. It goes, roughly 2 weeks since the war at the summit. There's a pirate ship offshore on Las Camp in West Blue. All our battleships are deployed elsewhere. What's the code to the nearest base? Right, and it just sets up that like new rookies, like this is specifically in West Blue, I believe they said. Yeah, West Blue, it says that new rookies are on their way. They're attacking like these weakened Marine camps because the Marines all had to go to, you know, where Ace was so they could defend that whole thing and do their own war. And in their weakened state, the pirates, the new rookie pirates, are coming through and like messing with them, which is something that I thought was really clever. And of course we get, you know, Luffy's grief scenes, which are not, you know, the best to go through because they make my heart hurt. But we see, you know, Luffy out there and he's talking about how, you know, he's pinching his cheeks and he just can't believe that Ace is dead. But he's like, this has to be a dream. This has to be a nightmare. And he's, you know, dealing with his grief as he's like smashing up the place. But we'll move on from that one pretty quickly. All right, here's one of the next big questions that I had, was to do with Kobe, right? Like in my last video, I said something along the lines of, you know, Kobe did try to desert, and then he, you know, stood up to the Marine guy, and it took Shanks to stop the Marine guy from killing Kobe, if I remember that correctly. And one of the big things was, like, they were like, you know, Kobe is a traitor, was kind of the words that were being thrown around. And I was like, what's going to happen with Kobe? And in my mind, I predicted that Kobe would become a pirate, or maybe even like a revolutionary. He would see the corruption of the Marines from the inside out and be like, wow, you know, someone should really stop them from all this badness that they're doing. And I feel as if, you know, this was the only scene, if I remember correctly, where we got any information on Kobe, and we just find out more about his haki. And like reading it now, I can understand that he has got the observation haki because he can see everyone around him. He says, I can feel the presence of people around me so strongly it's all too much. So we now know that he is lenient towards his observation haki. This scene I also liked a lot. This was when Smoker was talking about getting his transfer into the new world. Now, I feel like we didn't really have a lot to do with Smoker in this one, and I feel like we didn't really have a lot to do with Smoker in the, the arc before they get into the Grand Line as well. He's just kind of like been around a lot, but we haven't really had a lot to do with him, right? Like, I feel like the last kind of big thing we had with Smoker was when he was trapped in the cage with them with Crocodile, if my memory serves. But, I do think that that is quite symbolic, and I do think that there will be more with him in the future, because he followed Luffy at the end of like Logtown. He followed Luffy and the crew into the Grand Line, and now at the end of like, in this one, which is like this part of the story's Logtown, he is following them into the new world. So I feel as if there has to be something to do with Smoker will be big, right? Like, I feel as if he can't follow them from all the way from, East Blue, I believe is where Luffy's from. He can't follow them all the way from East Blue to the new world and not play a big part in this story. This panel I didn't find, like, it's not this specific panel, but it's like this kind of whole thing with Ace and Luffy and them trying to be friends, or Luffy specifically trying to befriend Ace. And, later on, Ace is like, why do you want to be my friend so badly? And Luffy's because we have no one else. There's no one else we can be friends with. We have each other, and that is it. But the reason I chose this specific panel is because Luffy says, why don't you take me with you? Let's be friends. And it's so interesting to read this flashback knowing that Ace hates himself for being alive, that he doesn't think that he's worthy of friendship, that he doesn't think he's worthy of love. And it's so interesting to watch this story unfold of like them being kids and how they bond and all of that, knowing everything that Ace has going on with him, like all of the issues he has with being Gold Roger's son. So it's really interesting to watch all that unfold with that information already there. And I can't remember, I don't know if I've saved the panel, hopefully I did, but like there's like some point where Ace is like, wait, so you were glad that I was born? And Luffy's like, yeah, of course I am. And like, I'm glad that we get this flashback after we know all that about Ace, so we can be like, understand the symbolism and the dramaticness of that moment. Because if we didn't know all that about Ace, and like something so subtle as Ace just going, wait, so you were glad that I was born? It would just like be lost on you as the reader. But like, now that we know everything that we know and we read that moment, it's just like, oh, we get it, Ace. We understand. We're glad that you were born. And here is when we start getting like the explanations and the foreshadowing and the setup for Ace not running away in the middle of the fight, right? We see Sabo, this is when they're saving Luffy from being tortured, I believe. And he's there and he's like, run, Ace. And he's like, you go first. I can't just run away in the middle of a fight. And we get that moment where it's like, oh no, like this is the lead up. This is the foreshadowing to Ace not being able to run away in a fight. And I feel as if this would have been better done as foreshadowing before we saw Ace not being able to run away from the fight and kill it. Right, all in all, I did really enjoy the backstory, the flashback or whatever, of Ace, Luffy, and Sabo, but I feel as if like some of it would have been better just before Ace's death, and some of it plays out really well just after his death. So I feel like, especially like this moment here where they're talking about like him not being able to run away from a fight, I feel like that would have been much better foreshadowing than much better explanation. But obviously I am biased because I am a man that loves foreshadowing. And then that leads me into this panel here, right? So this is in the aftermath. They're all sitting there, Luffy's crying, and Sabo says, Ace, that's a bad habit. You can't just say, I'm not gonna run when you're talking about real pirates. Why do you want to die so badly? Right, that would have been another one of those great foreshadowing moments of like, Ace, that's a bad habit. You can't just say, I'm not going to run. Right, like if for some reason Sabo was still alive and this was like a foreshadowed moment, and then, how we see everyone seeing the reaction of Ace dying, if Sabo was there to like look at the paper and just be like, I told you, Ace, I told you it was a bad habit that you had to break. You know, like, could you imagine? That would have been a really great moment. So it's just one of those moments that I thought would be better done as foreshadowing than as an explanation. This was something kind of silly, but I really did want to bring this up because it is like a prediction that I will officially have from now on. You see, this is when the three boys are running around and they're just being chaotic and causing trouble and whatever. And they go to a restaurant and they eat out the place and they run away without paying. And Luffy leaves a note that says, "Will pay when I find treasure, Luffy." And I really sincerely in my heart hope that towards the end of this story, when Luffy is sailing around, say for some reason he comes back to East Blue before he has to go back into the Grand Line or something, I don't know how the story's gonna go. I really hope Luffy comes back and pays that bill, right? It's just something silly and dumb and just like, you know, whatever. But it would warm my heart a great deal if like Luffy did a tour where he went around and he was just paying off his debts, you know, because there's been more than one place where he's like left a place without paying because, you know, what, Smoker came in and smashed through the wall when we first met Ace, I believe, and Luffy was there at the restaurant and he'd run away without paying, right? It'd just be, I don't know, kind of silly, but like heartwarming to just see Luffy going on a tour of like repaying his debts, you know, going and paying off all the buildings that he's destroyed, getting them repaired and fixed, or, you know, just kind of like fixing these little problems that he's caused. This one here I thought was really interesting as well. I thought this was really great, and it made me wonder if it was like a cultural thing, right? Because obviously Oda is Japanese, and, you know, I'm reading this in the Western world where I'm used to Western storytelling. But one of the things that caught my eye with this was that Sabo is going through something that is usually equated to women, right? Like, you must become a lady in order to attract a man worthy of, you know, money. You have to attract a man that's got money, that's got power, you know, a prince or whatever. And that's generally a storyline that you would set to women from like the 1500s or whatever. So it was really interesting to see that same storyline played out for a little boy instead of a little girl. And I thought it was done very, very well, especially when Sabo discovers that they adopted, you know, somebody from a wealthier family that has better standing than Sabo does. So that whole thing with him like becoming a distinguished gentleman in order to attract a lady from a higher house so he could marry into better positions for his family, I thought was a really interesting thing, because you do usually only see that from, you know, a girl's point of view. So it was really interesting to see it from the little boys. This is the infamous scene where we see the boys sharing their drink and becoming brothers. This is the scene that I quoted in my last video. It was really interesting because before the last arc where we see Shanks die, I don't remember the name of that one, we really only see this kind of happen in like the flashbacks that happen, like, you know, there's the little spiky words to represent like something that they've heard a while ago. And that's where I got that quote from. So it was really interesting to see like it actually play out and where that quote actually came from, where it's like, if you exchange drinks, then you become brothers. I liked this little montage in general. I liked all the little montages that we saw where you see, you know, the kids being little shits and, you know, the like shopkeeper taking care of them and the kids going out and fighting the animals, and then you see Garp and, you know, he's there and he realizes how much like little shits Luffy and Shanks are, so he like, you know, disciplines them in his own kind of way. I did really enjoy this whole kind of like montage thing that happened, and I enjoyed seeing Garp come in every now and again to just kind of like show his face and show that he did check up on those kids whenever he was around. This one here I thought was a really great scene as well. So this is after like Ace and Luffy are working for the pirates, because Sabo turned himself in to his father and was like, hey, look, I'll turn myself in, don't hurt Ace and Luffy, they're my best friends, they mean more to me than my own life, right? And we see all that happening, and, you know, they've put the bombs and the oil and all that around the, what is it, the Grey Terminal, you know, the rubbish dump or whatever, and they're about to set it off, and they've just told Ace and Luffy are like, no, no. And then we see the pirate down the bottom, he's like, you know, before we set this place alight, there's something I've got to ask the two of you. You wouldn't happen to have a stash of treasure hidden away somewhere around here, would you? And just that like look on his face is just like, you know bad news is coming. And it's like, I really enjoyed that moment because it came out of nowhere, and as the reader I was like, fuck, I feel bad for Ace and Luffy, what's about to happen? And here we see the flashbacks of Dragon when he is dealing with the kid, and the kid is like, I'm so ashamed to be a noble. Once the kid has learned all these terrible things that's going on. And I believe it's in a future panel that we see Dragon reference the kid a little later on, and like what happened, and how he believes that people are still salvageable, people are still savable, because even people born into this noble bloodline or position or whatever can still see like, hey, this is wrong, we need to change this. And so I have a feeling that later on in this next, the New World Saga, or whatever it's called, I have a feeling it's going to be so heavily revolved around revolution and ousting bad governments and entrenching new good governments. From here we see, a few other really interesting things. I don't seem to have the panels saved, otherwise I'd be putting them up. But we see, Sabo set sail after he realizes how corrupt everything is, and he's like, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to set sail, and he writes that note to Ace. And he goes out there, and you see him, and he's like on the ship, and he's got his pirate flag, and he's just there, and he's like, yeah, I've got the whole world at my feet, and I'm about to be the best pirate I can be. When that first happened, I felt so like good for him. It was such a heartwarming moment to like see him on the deck of his ship with the whole world in front of him and him setting sail. And then we get like the royalty bloodline, the name's escaping me, and he's like, what is this ship? Pulls out a bazooka and just like blows him out of the water. But I don't believe that he's dead, so I wasn't too emotionally damaged about that one. But then, we see Ace get the letter from him, and he removes himself from Luffy, and he removes himself from everybody, and he goes and he like just expresses his grief out by the water. And it was one of those like really great freeing moments, because so far up until that point he had to like seem so strong, and he was always like constantly calling Luffy a crybaby, and even Sabo called Luffy a crybaby in that letter, if my memory serves. And it was so good to just see Ace let go of that like perceived strength of that like outward crusty exterior, and just like let himself feel the emotions of losing his friend. Even if he had to go and find his own little space to do it, so Luffy wouldn't think he was a crybaby kind of thing. But it was so nice to see all that play out. We also see the moment where Ace promises Luffy that he's not going to die, which is also another one of those like emotional moments where, we flash back to when they had the flashback when Ace was dying in Luffy's arms, and we get that moment where Ace is like, hey, don't be stupid, I'm not going to die, I promise you I won't die. One of the sadder moments for me was actually when Garp went back to, Luffy's hometown, that Windmill Village, I believe it was called. And he goes there and he has to see the woman that runs that bar, and he has to see the big bandit woman. And the big bandit woman jumps out and starts like beating him, and she's like, how could you let this happen? How could you let this happen? You put your own career in front of these kids, and rah rah rah. And she's like going off and beating him, and Garp's just there, and you can just see that he looks so sad. And it's like, you knew that he didn't stop Luffy from saving Ace, right? Like us as the reader, we know that he physically had to stand in front of Luffy, but when Luffy came to like punch him, he let it happen. He let Luffy rocket him off that stage and like hit into the ground so that he could put up the appearance that he was trying to stop Luffy, but he wasn't going to stand in his way. And then when he went back home and he's dealing with this grief and this loss of not only Ace, but also everything, knowing everything that Luffy had to go through and will have to go through, and all of the like both physical and emotional damage that he's had to sustain. And then he goes back to that home, and I'm not even quite sure why he goes back. Like, I wonder if it's like a catharsis thing, like if he wants to go back there and just see these other people that care about Luffy and cared about Ace, and just like be around people that do have those strong emotional feelings for them, because he wouldn't find any of those people in the Marines. In the Marines, they'd just be going like, yes, we've killed them, we've killed them. So maybe that was why he went back there, and he just kind of let himself get beat up, because he was already beating himself up. and, you know, he would probably hold himself accountable for not actively doing something to save Ace, because she was right. He did, you know, although he didn't stand in Luffy's way, he was there. He could have helped. He could have turned his back on the Marines and saved those boys. So I actually did feel really bad for Garp in this one, because, like, you know, he would just be feeling so much emotional turmoil, and then also people are holding him, like, personally accountable for Ace's death as well. Anyways, that was a nice little chat about this. This video turned out to be much longer than I was expecting. You know, I'm really looking forward to find out what happens next. I'm really looking forward to find out what everyone's been up to in the past 2 years. I hope we get like little montages of everyone. That'll be really nice. I really want to see Fishman Island. I really want to see what the new world looks like. So I'm pretty excited to get straight into the new one. I know that there's a lot of arcs that are going to be like 100 chapters long or something coming up, so I'm probably going to do them like 30 chapter reviews at a time, because generally after 30 chapters I'll start forgetting things. So I'll probably try to do 30 chapters, or at the very least 25 chapters, maybe like, actually that makes more sense. 25 chapters divided by 100 is 4, 30 is like kind of 3-ish. So maybe, I don't know, I guess I'll see as I'm going through it. Thanks for sticking around, thanks for supporting me for so long. I really appreciate it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Give me your comments, give me your thoughts, theories, love, hate, concern, whatever. And as always, thank you very much.